Ukraine's military says Russia has launched another night of heavy missile and drone attacks across the country. At one point, the whole of Ukraine was under an air alert as missiles were fired from the Black Sea and strategic bombers in Russia. Officials in the Ukrainian capital said around a dozen enemy drones had reached Kiev's airspace, which forced thousands to take shelter in metro stations and basements. 3 people were reportedly killed in Kiev. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry said its air defenses had destroyed almost 100 Ukrainian drones, mostly in central and southern regions, as well as Moscow. These here are the latest pictures we've just received from Ukraine's capital. An earlier massive Russian attack on Kiev overnight into Saturday wounded at least 15 people. Well, let's go live now to Kiev and our correspondent there, James Waterhouse. And James, what more can you tell us about these overnight attacks on Ukraine?
Well, they were widespread. I mean, for Kiev itself, the sirens went off at around midnight. I headed down to the shelter here, and then a couple of hours later is when the explosions could be felt in this central part of the city. You could see drones being intercepted in the skies. You could hear 50 caliber machine guns shooting upwards to try and take out some of the dozens of Russian drones that were aimed at this city. But more broadly, the Air Force is saying more than 360 drones and missiles were launched last night. That is the single biggest number yet. And what you notice is that the scale of these attacks are only increasing. Ukrainian regions in the west, north, south were also targeted. And President Zelensky hasn't really held back this morning. He has said America's silence will only encourage Vladimir Putin to keep doing the same. And what he's referring to are the lack of sanctions, further sanctions, being imposed by America as it tries to continue to lead these ongoing ceasefire talk efforts. But, you know, there is very little hope that there'll be any kind of further cooperation with Russia. I should say today is the final day of a major prisoner of war exchange. But beyond that, I think, you know, the last 48 hours, we had another major strike on Friday night. The last 48 hours give people here little hope that respite is around the corner.
Indeed, and President Zelensky has called for truly strong pressure on Russia. You say that's unlikely to come from the United States. So what are Ukrainians realistically hoping for at the moment?
Well, they have the impossible job, Ukrainians, of straddling two positions politically. They have to say that they are willing for a ceasefire and that they rely on Donald Trump to deliver it because of Ukraine's continued need for American military aid. And despite the White House clearly being less sympathetic to Ukraine's cause, it is open to the idea of selling Ukraine arms in the future, and also American aid is continuing to trickle down and will continue for some time. But also Ukraine has to continue to fight Russia, to defend itself, to assert its positions in the face of continued Russian demands for Ukraine's political capitulation in order for a ceasefire to be agreed. So you're seeing Zelensky be assertive, but also not wanting to cause another falling out with Donald Trump, which he can't afford, which, of course, we saw earlier this year. And I think this cycle of Russia continuing to wage its full-scale invasion, it's still making advances in the east, where you have America running out of patience and threatening to walk away, and Russia not changing its position, that just leads to the situation for Ukraine not really changing. And so you sense it'll take something diplomatically significant, extremely significant, to break that pattern.
And James, we've watched the choreography of the prisoner swaps between Russia and Ukraine this weekend. Once they're concluded, what happens next?
Well, Ukraine is hoping, or certainly America is that it'll lead to further discussions. That this sole area of cooperation, which has been the case throughout this full-scale invasion, continues, and actually, you know, Ukrainian and Russian representatives sit down in the future and say, look, we've exchanged 1,000 this week, how about we do more? And while we're at it, why don't we talk about how we're going to arrange a ceasefire, which the US desperately wants. But at the moment, it feels like more of a fantasy.
James, thank you. That's our Ukraine correspondent, James Waterhouse in Kyiv for us.